Hello, 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 hello. Thanks for joining us. Right, so I've got some fantastic questions up today. Somebody texted me some questions. I asked from on Facebook. I asked for some people to send through some questions, and I've got some cracking ones tonight. So we're going to go through those. A little bit of housekeeping, as it were. We've got dive off as now confirmed, and we've got spaces that we can confirm. So we've been doing this depth freediving course for, I think it's 13 years. So it's either the 14th or 13th year we've done it this year. So that's incredible. It's easily the longest running open water comp in the UK. But it's cracking, and by COVID rules we can have up to 30 competitors, which is awesome. So that's the 11th to the 13th of September in Vobster, and we've got our Glebe house booked, so we've got camping for anybody. So anybody wants to come along. The joy of the dive off is I call it almost IATA rules. So there's 4 comps. The first one is, as I say, almost IATA rules. The idea is that we want to encourage people to get involved, just in freediving in general. And as soon as you start talking about depth comps with black wetsuits, lines, and going deep, it puts off quite a lot of people and starts putting pressure on people for things that don't really need to be under pressure. So we really encourage everybody to come along to the dive off. It's meant for everybody, newbies, intermediates, seniors, and we've graded it. So if you're a newbie, you'll get a senior to look after you for the whole day. If you're an intermediate, you'll work with an intermediate. And the idea is to give you the best possible experience that we can give you. And at the end of the day, everybody votes on who had the best dive. So it's not the deepest dive, it's the best dive. But of course, if a senior just does a shallow dive, a 5 meter dive, and they do it perfectly, every part of it will be 10 out of 10. We know that that's not a difficult dive for them, so they're not going to win. Okay? So you've got to do a dive that's challenging to yourself, but you've got to perform it well. And so over the last few years, we've had prizes. We've given away holidays to Egypt, to Greece. We've given away a glide monofin. This year, due to the situation, sponsorship obviously has dropped down quite a lot. So the prizes aren't going to be as big. But the point is, you want to get involved and get those votes for the best dive overall. That's only the first competition. We also have a team static or team guesstimate static, depending on how exuberant we feel. We've got a new turns comp this year that we're going to run in the pool in the Glebe house, and then on the Sunday morning it's guess your depth. So you get given a depth and a dive computer strapped to your back, and you have to kind of go down and guess when you're at that depth. And we get quite a few people within 20 centimeters of their given depth, which is awesome. Anyway, that's enough of that chat. Let's get on with what you're here for. We've also got Late Fest and Norfest. Norfest hasn't even been announced. This is it. This is an exclusive to you guys now watching. Norfest. So we're going to Norfolk. There's a couple of wrecks that we're going to dive, and an old ruined Roman port that's submerged. And that's on the 21st to 23rd of August. So we can go up on the 21st, dive on 22nd, 23rd. Late Fest is is the 4th to the 6th, and roughly we might go a few days earlier if we're feeling cheeky, down to Cornwall, so for some more diving then. So fantastically full calendar in the coming weeks. Okay, on with questions. So Darren has asked, and I'm going with Darren because it's right there, bang, straight up. When you have access to deep water, what's the most efficient approach for deep depth adaptation? Wow. Okay, so depth adaptation comes in many points. So I'm just step back from that question a little bit, give other people a little bit of a background towards depth adaptation. So depth adaptation comes in different forms. It's ultimately being comfortable at depth. So building up the skills. It's not about touching a depth. Oh, I've done that. I did that depth once. That's pretty useless for progression, pretty useless for self-confidence, pretty useless for anything really for future work. If you've just touched 20 meters, you're not going to be any good to kind of take some photographs at 20 meters. Okay, so you want to build up that confidence at those depths. So whatever depth you're looking for, you're using, the objectives that will usually kind of have some sort of should be pretty obvious. It doesn't matter what they are, you're working towards them, and it's confidence and comfort and relaxation at that depth. So that's what we mean by depth adaptation. So you've got to build up the skills, so you master skills. You can't just go on a 2-day course and master the skills. You go on a 2-day course or a week course or even a 2-week course. You can't master the skills in that short amount of time. You've got to learn them and then practice them so you've mastered them. So this is the first step in depth adaptation. You've got to know that duck dive is on point. And there's no reason for you not to have a good duck dive, because you can do that in 2 meters of water. You can do it in a swimming pool. Right? So duck dive on point. The first equalization on point. The first few kicks on point. And you've got to have that built in. You've got to have that confidence that you know that they're not an issue. They're not going to be an issue. That's the first approach to depth adaptation. You can do that any depth of water. So you can build up that so you know you've got that. Then you've got the middle section where you're getting down to the depth you need with equalization and the techniques, and you've got, again, build up the confidence in them. So there's no point in sitting at a deep, whether that's deep for you or deep for, in general, whatever you're hanging. There's no point in hanging there not 100% confident about swimming back, whether it's no fins or pulling or swimming, whatever it is. If you're not confident about getting back there super strong, then you're not going to be able to relax at the bottom. So those skills, getting down and back up, are the most important and the easiest to train. So that's when Darren asks what's the most efficient approach. It's really nailing those techniques. Then you get to the depth and you hang out there. Do some stuff there at whatever depth, or it doesn't matter what the depth is, whether it's for you or for where there's an object or something. It doesn't matter, but you get close to that depth and spend some time there, just hanging out. If you are 3 meters away from an object, maybe it's a plane or a wreck you're going to look at, and that's a little bit outside your comfort zone, then pull it back, hang out a little bit higher above it, above the object, but in your comfort zone, and hang there, look at it, enjoy it, start getting your head around how it lies, and just think, I could do that. I've got time. Whether it's 5 seconds, I'm not saying do a long static. I'm saying be aware of that depth and spend some time acknowledging that depth. And then 3 meters more is going to be easy, not only because of the fact you've got the time, but you've got the confidence. Well, I was there for like 10 seconds, so going an extra 3 meters, I know I've got the breath hold, I know I've got the techniques, I know I've got all these other things, so then that extra 3 meters is not going to be challenging on, say, 9 out of the 10 aspects that you need to work on to get there. So what I'm saying is the most efficient way is to tick off each of the aspects at once for a certain depth, or your next depth, or the challenge that you're setting yourself. And for me, the easiest way to get down to a depth and hang around at that depth is on the sled. So for sake of argument, let's pick a depth, 33 meters, 32 meters. Getting down there and going back, you can do it efficiently, maybe 2-3 times in a session, if you're working at that sort of depth. And if you swim down there, you've got, you know, a few seconds, 10 seconds, heck, you might even have 30 seconds, you know, comfortable hanging around there. I'd be surprised if you've got 30 seconds hanging around there if that's the depth you're working at, bearing in mind everybody's different. But, you know, say you've got 10 seconds. So you've got three dives, 10 seconds each to hang out at that depth. That's kind of about reasonable figures. If you go on a sled, you could go there 6 times. Yeah, because you've got no effort going down there, no effort coming back. And you could wait there for easily 30 seconds. Right? Because you've got no energy expended going down and back up. So already you've doubled the amount of times you can get there and trebled the amount of time you can spend there. So in one session, you can spend whatever that is, 6 times as much time at the bottom, just acknowledging, accepting the depth, acknowledging the depth, not going any deeper, not pushing your boundaries, not breaking your limits or whatever they say, just being there, enjoying it. So the next time you dive there, you're looking forward to being there. And that's adaptation. Okay. So another question that's come up is TJ says, are you back training jiu-jitsu? Yes, I am. Thank you very much for asking. In a very limited way, I have 4 partners, so 3 regular partners that I'm training with. We're all very careful when we train. If they're training with somebody else, they're washing the mats between trainings and changing gis, etc. But we are back. We are back training limited, so 3 or 4 times a week. The academies haven't opened up full yet. Okay, here's Donde Esta has said, compared with scuba diving, fish seem much more comfortable to interact when you're freediving. Do you think this is due to the lack of bubbles, or because freedivers appear more relaxed and natural to fish? Well, literally, Donde Esta has answered his own questions. There's 2 reasons why fish interact with freedivers better. The first is the bubbles. Now, I know people say, yeah, but what about rebreathers? Yeah, when I'm saying bubbles, I don't necessarily just mean the bubbles, but going, which rebreathers do, is quite an abrasive sound. It's not a smooth sound, and fish are not going to like it. Bear in mind, at the moment, I'm trying to teach the fish, the carp at in Raisbury, I'm trying to teach them to not be scared of my camera, which isn't an SLR, okay? It's a mirrorless camera, but it does go tick, 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 when you take photos, and they don't like it. So I'm teaching them. I'm going there and taking shots, even when they're not in range. They're going tick, 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 so they're getting used to that sound. That's you know where we're going with this. So somebody going is not going to be received well by the fish. But the bubbles are a thing, and this is something that really is interesting to me. I'm not saying it upsets me, but it interests me that scuba divers don't realize, very, very rarely do they realize how much space they take up. So they're about this big. Say you're looking at a scuba diver, and the distance, they're that big. Okay, so they're 6 foot long, but their bubbles are 30 meters long, 30 meters wide. There's a big triangle of bubbles as they go to the surface and expand. So if you imagine a fish, they're looking out, they see something, 2 meter long thing swimming. They're nervous of that. But if they see something that's 30 meters long, 30 meters high, coming towards them, they're going to be scared of it. Okay, so the sheer size of a scuba diver is underestimated. Okay, and bubbles act unnaturally for them as well. So the movement of bubbles is not something they're gonna. I mean, it kills coral. Bubbles kill coral. This is another thing that's really not advertised. So you've got an overhang, and if scuba divers go under an overhang, if you go into Egypt, for instance, the whole of that overhang will be dead. There's no way that coral can live, because bubbles stick onto the polyps. Polyps die. That's it. So that's beside the point. Scuba divers got to be aware that the size of the bubbles they create to a fish is just a massive object. The bubbles are moving funny. That's it. But more than that, we spend inordinate amount of time practicing as freedivers being relaxed underwater, just being there, eyes closed, relaxed, letting the water move you. And scuba divers could do the same. They could spend a long time doing that. And weirdly enough, if you go to Egypt, your dive guides will be super relaxed underwater. You can spot the dive guide every time, because they're the ones barely feeling half asleep, going along. And they're the ones that see the fish, because they're the ones that are relaxed. They breathe in less, there's less bubbles, and they're super relaxed. But we can do that with freediving as well. So, Donde, you've answered your own questions. Bubbles, relaxation. Okay, Dusan says, hi Marcus, I want to buy a new dive computer. Don't bother. I'm thinking about some with free and scuba mode, for example, Mara Smart. What should I pay attention to? Well, the Mara Smart is an awesome computer. I mean, they're all pretty damn good. I mean, it's their latest iteration. It's, kind of does everything, all singing, all dancing. Personally, computers are the biggest brick wall to progression. As soon as you put a number onto a dive, and I know people say, oh yeah, I mean, obviously looking at a computer doing a dive is ridiculous and nobody would ever do that. So we're not even going to talk about that. But people say, after a dive, I just like to look, see what it is. But as soon as you put a number onto a dive, as soon as you know the depth of that dive, it's human nature that we forget the rest of the information about the dive. So to learn, the numbers are the worst thing for you to progress, because you forget all the other stuff, and the other stuff is what you're learning. Okay, learning that you did 20 meters, learning that you did 15 meters, 30 meters, 50 meters, whatever it is not learning. That's just a number. That's just literally the only reason you have numbers for depth is to show off to other people. It has no bearing in anything else. You do 100 foot, it's 33 meters. 100 foot sounds dramatic. It's 100 foot, but turn it into meters, it's just 33 meters. They are just numbers. So having a computer, super difficult to use one properly. I personally would say the Sunto D3, which was out in 2002, gave you a time, a depth, and you could download it. That's it. You don't need anything else. Alarms, if you're going super deep in a competition, you can have a layer. And you see the guys that put a computer in their hood. It's a last equalization alarm. If you're still equalizing when the layer goes off, you're good for the bottom. If you stop equalizing and the layer hasn't gone off, then you turn around and come back. But that's only useful if you're going past 50, 60 meters. That's a very specific use for a dive computer alarm, and you're obviously not looking at the depth. So personally, I would steer well clear of an alarm of a dive computer. They will destroy your learning. There's literally no way you can use one to learn. Progression comes from awareness, and awareness is shattered by a computer. Sorry. So your actual question is, what should I pay attention to? Not your computer. When I was doing the world records with Herbert, I did use a computer on him, and so he was doing one of the records of free immersion record. So I was looking at his pools. So I looked on the computer. Obviously, we knew the depth because he grabbed a tag, so there was no need for the depth. But I could see, we put the Sunto on, whatever it is, half-second intervals, and we could see how quick he was pulling on the way down, so we could see exactly what time, when he stopped pulling, and where he hit the glide, and the speeds, and on the way back, how long his pulls were, how far he went on every pull. And I analysed that. Herbert never even looked at him. Didn't matter. I was his coach, and I really kind of looked at that, and we kind of analysed it, because he was training to a certain depth, but his world record was going to be maybe another 10 meters deeper. So we worked out how long it would take, how many more pulls it would be, so I could see how knackered he was, and you know, that sort of stuff. You know, it's all interesting, but I ditched them straight away. I couldn't tell you, you know, they weren't of any use except for analysing how many pulls, you know, and how fast the pulls were and whether they were good pulls, etc., etc. So we could tweak some stuff. But this is again really specific, and we're talking, you know, 100-meter dives, you know. Anyway. Somebody else has said your BJJ vids are amazing. Keep up with the good vibe. Much respect from Israel. Rock and roll. Love to come and train in Israel at some point. Love to come and train. We're hoping next year to drive down to Egypt, to dive down in Marsa Alam. So maybe we'll come through Israel, and maybe we'll get to train with you guys out in Israel and dive there, of course. You know, this is also an opportunity to dive. On that point, somebody asked, Laura asked, if we've got any trips planned for next year. Yes, we've got some trips planned for next year. It's all very tentative, but again, exclusive for you guys watching tonight, an exclusive. We've got April Marsa trip planned and booked, and a June Marsa trip booked. So the April one will be in the school holidays. I can give you the dates. I can give you the dates now. I have them in my diary. So it's from the 8th of April and the 3rd of June. Okay, flying from Gatwick. It is the best freedive trip in the world. I know that because I decided, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, when we started doing the trips to Marsa, what would make the best freedive trip in the world? And then made it. Literally put together the best freedive trip in the world. So yes, we've got those two planned. Okay, another question by Donde. So I've just got 2 minutes left. So I've got 7 minutes left. Plenty. So Donde says, does diaphragm flexibility affect when contractions start, and how comfortable they feel? Good question. Really good. I said they were good questions. So they don't necessarily affect when contractions start. Now, you've got two types of contractions. You've got true contractions that are brought on by CO2 levels, or possibly O2 levels. So when you hold your breath, your CO2 raises up and your O2 goes down. And this is what is the trigger, the urge to breathe. The triggers the urge to breathe. Most people, it's carbon dioxide raising up. Sorry, did I do the other hand first? Yeah. Most CO2 rising up, but quite a few people, maybe 1 in 10 people, have the lower of oxygen, which is their trigger to urge to breathe. So that's true contractions. But most people get or have false contractions, and these are neurologically triggered. So these are just your body knowing how long you hold your breath for and trying to breathe. So when you first start out, they'll come on super early. Later on, you teach your body when the false contractions come in. So some people have them at a certain point, some people have quite a lot, but you teach your body the false contractions, and there's ways to work out whether they're false or real. It doesn't really matter. They are all contractions. So they come in on CO2 or oxygen or neurological. Nothing to do with how flexible your diaphragm is. Having said that, if you have a good flexibility or healthy diaphragm, should we say, so flexible, controllable, strong, usable, you use it a lot, you practice, you do pranayama, you do belly breathing exercises, then the diaphragmatic contractions will be a lot softer, a lot easier controlled. And when I say controlled, it's not about stopping them, it's about acknowledging them, accepting them, and letting them go. Yeah. So diaphragm and flexibility It does affect your contractions quite a lot, but it doesn't affect when they come in. That's down to other issues. Excellent, excellent, excellent. So, have we got any music? Yeah, we've got a little bit more time. So, one more question.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah, hang on a sec. We have a live question in the house, yes.
Will you be returning to some of the exercises from the top 60, like breathing exercises and stuff like that, at any point in the future?
Will I be doing them on live?
Yeah.
Good question. Yeah, very good question. So, as we move back towards the pools, and by the way, the first pool session for No Tanks pool session is back on August the 25th at the King Alfred. We'll be trying out some new stuff. We've changed around our systems a little bit to try and make the experience A, COVID safe, and B, more accessible. So as we go back, will we still keep up the live streaming? Yes, we will. I'm hoping in the next couple of months to really nail down the live streams. Obviously, the Monday question Q&A is working really well, so we'll keep that up. But we will be doing some of the dry exercises we did in the first 60. And we may even start a new YouTube channel specifically for freediving related training exercises. But if it's on mine or if it's on another one, yes, we definitely will have them coming in. We're gonna kind of pin them down. Okay, so that's 6 questions tonight. Awesome questions. If anybody, if you want to ask a question for next week, then please message me. You can put them up now if you want, or just message us on Facebook, and I'll answer them. Or email us through. So No Tanks group, you can message on or email me on mig@notanks.com. And yeah, stay posted. Things are starting to happen back into the swing of things, and we've got a lot of things planned between now. In fact, we've got Vobster next weekend as well, on the 15th and 16th, if you fancy coming down and doing some diving in Vobster. Loads of stuff planned. So thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Wednesday. Wednesday is postponed. We're not doing a dry session on Wednesday because we've got a filming job to do, and we won't be back in time for it. But hopefully we'll be back on Friday. I'll post some information about that on Facebook. Okay,